best car, SUV, or truck, guess what? You're in luck. Frontier Motors is down the street. Got the best deals that can't be beat. Don't overpay, come in today. Doing business the old-fashioned way. Frontier, we've got the right price. Frontier, we'll treat you mighty nice. Frontier Motors, low overhead country.
And we are pleased to announce that we have the owner of that fine establishment here with us, ready, willing, and able to answer any car questions that you might have. If you'd like to direct them our way, 476-1007, 476-1007. That's the magic phone number to be connected with Iven Strickle from Frontier Motors at 230 Beverly Parkway. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year, Don. Thanks so much for the introduction. And we, again, have a double format, meaning that we are not only on WCOA Radio, AM and FM on the radio, live right now. We also are videotaping this for our Blab TV customers all over the South. When I say South, actually all over the world. I know you can stream it. You can stream COA Radio also. You can stream, right,
sure.
Don? And what we do here at the Frontier Motor Show is talk about not just Frontier Motors and what we can offer the people in the Pensacola area, but some of the things that we can help you with, whether you're buying a car from us at Frontier Motors or whether you can buy a car from your neighbor or maybe on Craigslist or maybe even another car dealership. Maybe you're looking at a brand new car. So there's a lot of things that we can do at Frontier Motors that a lot of car dealerships don't take the time to do because it doesn't put any money in their pocket. And what we do on this radio show and TV show is talk about some of the services that we provide, and that there is a car dealership that you can go to that can give you advice and tell you what a good deal is, what a bad deal is, do history reports for you, and all kinds of things that we can do at no charge for you to help you get a good deal. And we feel that this obviously it's worked very well for us for over the last going on 18 years now, because we are the number one independent dealership in the Pensacola area, actually in the state of Florida, according to some of the magazines I get where they actually count all the numbers in the registrations. But it's helped us because what happens is if we help you get a deal somewhere, even if it's from the competition, the dealer that you're going to remember is the dealer that helped you get the deal. And the way we can go about doing this is not just by giving you a price, and I'll give you an example. I have the new car cost guides that we subscribe to, and this cost guide is pretty expensive. It gives me the retail price and the dealer invoice price of every car out there. That way, if you're going to buy a brand new one, and I do subscribe to Consumers Reports also, and when you get Consumers Reports, they have the last page, and I'm going to check this one before I shoot my mouth off. Yeah, they have the last page. You can buy an invoice from Consumers Reports. Let me see if there's a price on here. For $14 on report. In the back of Consumers Report, that you can buy an invoice from Consumers Reports, and they'll give you the cost of the car for $14 per car. Well, what if you don't know exactly what car you're looking for? What if you're not sure if you want a Ford or a Chevy or a Toyota? Well, that means you got to pay $14 because you're really not sure, and you want to use that competitive edge pricing to make your decision. At Frontier Motors, we have the new car cost guides that gives us the retail price and the cost of any car out there. We can share this information at no charge to you. And let me see if they got a Corvette. Yeah, let's use a Chevy Corvette, for example. 2014 Chevy Corvette. If anybody doesn't know this, they changed the body style. It's absolutely gorgeous. They actually call it a Stingray now. And it's got a retail price. The base model has a retail price. The retail price being the Moroni sticker. When you go to the car and look at it, if it didn't have any equipment, the retail price would be $51,000, and the shipping is $995. Now, most of the cars are going to have aftermarket or equipment on top of that, but let's just assume it's just the base car. The cost on that car, the dealer invoice is $46,400. Now the shipping's not marked up at all. They charge basically $1,000 for shipping, and that's what the dealer pays. So there's not a markup on that. But that leads me to believe that the markup on this car is just about $3,600. So if you have that information, it might help you to negotiate yourself a deal on the car. Now, folks, you might as well forget about it. Just happened to open this by a coincidence to a Corvette. The Corvette is a car that right now is selling for actually over list price. So even if I told you the invoice, it's not going to help you get a deal on that particular car. But let's say it's a Chevy Camaro, which right now seem to be a dime a dozen. They're stacking up. They're not selling. They overproduced them. The hoopla, so to speak, is over with. And when the Camaro and the Challenger in the Dodge version came out just basically at the same time. These cars were also selling for over list price, and that was back in 2010. Well, now you can buy a Camaro. You can walk into the dealership and buy a Camaro for $200 or $300 over invoice, and I can share that invoice cost with you. In other words, if you knew what the price was, it would save you a lot of time because you don't have to sit there and haggle back and forth. That's one of the things that we can help you with if you're thinking about buying a brand new car. The second thing we can help you with is if you are going to buy a brand new car and we can't entice you to buy one of our cars that might be a 2014 used or 2013 used car with low miles on, let's assume that you've saved your money or you just have more money you know what to do with, and you said, I don't care what the depreciation is on a 6-month-old car, I'm buying me a brand new car. Well, the way we can help you, other than by telling you the cost of that car, is also tell you what your trade-in is worth. And the way that we find out what the trade-in is worth, well, obviously the easiest way would be if you drove it over to Frontier Motors on Beverly Parkway and let us appraise the car for you. That appraisal process takes maybe 10 to 15 minutes maximum. And what we do is we look at the car, we walk around it, we take a couple of pictures of the car, we scan the ID number, and you know, with these smartphones these days, it has an app on here. It's called eCar List, and when I pull up the eCar List and I hit the app, what it does is it opens up a screen and you can scan the ID number of that car. And it looks a little bit similar to a barcode. And I don't know if people know this, but cars have barcodes. Some of them are right by the ID number on the windshield. Some of them you have to open up the door and it has the barcode right there. Well, it makes my job a lot easier because it tells me a lot about that car when it scans that. And this happens in a matter of seconds. I scan the car and everything pops up right there. I take a couple of pictures with my phone, and that's information goes right into my computer, and it helps me with the appraisal process, so it cuts down your time. It used to be years ago that this was all something that a dealership would kind of take a feel of. They'd look at the car, and it would take them sometimes an hour to analyze how much to pay for a particular car. Well, I've got that cut down to between 5 and 10 minutes maximum, as long as I'm not with a customer. And we have 4 people at Frontier Motors that'll appraise that car for you. So a lot of times you won't have to wait. Even if I'm busy, I've got other managers there that do the same thing and help you with that appraisal process. Now, the reason this would be important, and I'll pick on Lexus and Mobile, for example. I'm not sure if they're listening right now, but let's assume that you've decided to buy a brand new Lexus at Lexus and Mobile. And even though I have some 2013 models on the lot with very low miles on them, let's assume that you said, no, I'm going to buy a brand new one. Well, what I'll do is I'll appraise that car for you. So if you bring it into me, let me appraise it for you. I can let you know, here's what I'll write the check for. Now, the other thing I can do is, even if you don't have the time to come in and you're listening to this or watching this outside the area, I can open up a black wholesale guidebook. And this book that I'm using is a black wholesale guidebook. They got a small one and they got a big one. The big one is for trucks. They print this every 2 weeks. And the car book is brand new every week. And the way they get the figures out of these books is they go to the auctions. They actually have a computer at every auction that adds up every car that's been sold, not just at the Mannheim auctions, which is the largest auction chain in the world, but also there's lots of other smaller auctions. The Odessa auction chain is the second largest auction chain in the United States. And there's some smaller auctions also. There's one in Mobile, and there's a lot of them in our area. But they compile all this data, and it's thousands and thousands of cars. The last time I looked in our area, every week, they offer almost between 20 and 25,000 cars for sale every week at the local auctions. And that's just not nationwide. That's just the local auctions that I'm able to get into. And fortunately, we're lucky enough to have the second largest auction in the world right here in Orlando. It's called the Ocoee Auto Auction. It's in Ocoee, right outside of Orlando. And it is a Mannheim auction. And most of you are familiar with Mannheim because there is a Mannheim auction on W Street right here in Pensacola, and which is a great auction. The volume here in Pensacola is not that of what it is, of course, in Orlando. They sell between 500 and 600 cars every Tuesday here in Pensacola, but they sell between 3,000 and 6,000 cars in Orlando every single week. The largest auction is in outside of Philadelphia at a small town called Mannheim. That's where they get the Mannheim auction from. That's the first Mannheim auction. And they sell, on a Friday, they will sell up to 12,000 cars in one day at that auction. It is the largest auction in the world. I used to go up there years ago, but then people said, well, you're going up north to get your cars, and they're afraid that the cars are rusted, which is, of course, is a joke, but I stopped doing that. And one of the reasons we said that we used to be able to go up north and buy two-wheel drive trucks quite a bit cheaper than here, but now that you can ship a car and do it on the internet, pretty much the pricing is not higher or lower in a different area. And a lot of people say that. When we started, I know I'm getting off track a little bit, but we were talking about regional, that people would tell me, well, I can go to Texas and get a pickup truck cheaper than here. It's not true at all. I've gone to Texas and bought vehicles there. There's no difference. We get the information so fast, and I can tell you that if I could buy a truck $1,000 cheaper in Texas, I'd go over there and buy it, because it only cost me $250 to bring it back here, and it'd still be $750 a head. It doesn't work like that. It just doesn't. Because right now you can click on them and you can buy a car anywhere in the nation. Of course, you don't want to... Now, sometimes the shipping is quite a bit higher. So, for example, I'm not going to California to buy a car because I might save $1,000 if I happen to get a deal on one particular car. By the time it costs me $1,000 from California to ship it here, of course, I might have just bought it right here in my backyard. So when I talk about Lexus, for example, if you're going to go to Lexus Mobile and you've got a trade-in, and let's assume that you have a 2011 IS350 you want to trade. Well, my book here says that average wholesale is $30,000 and clean wholesale is $32,000. So somewhere between $30,000 and $32,000 is what the black wholesale guidebooks say. Now, this is printed every week. Now, the second thing I check is I go into the Manheim auctions and I can see what happened yesterday. So if there was an auction yesterday and they had 4 of these IS350s that have sold, I can double check to make sure that book is correct. The other book that we use is an NEDA book. The NEDA book is what a bank is going to use if you were going to go to, let's say, Navy Federal Credit Union, or let's say it's Gulf Winds, or let's say it's Penn Air, and I'm just naming some of them. It can be Harvesters. When you pull this out, they're going to book this vehicle out, and I'm going to go at random. It doesn't necessarily have to be a Lexus, but let's just use a Lexus, a 2010 IS model. It says that the NEDA retail is $23,300. So now, if the wholesale is $20,000 and retail is $23,300, the next question is, what should the dealer appraise the car for? Well, there's a lot of things that go into that. One of them goes into it, how bad does the dealer want the car? So if you go to a dealership, for example, let's say you went to the Lexus dealership and you're driving a diesel pickup truck, the appraisal that used car manager might give you might be a lot lower than if you went to a Ford dealership, for example, where they do a good diesel pickup truck business. And that doesn't necessarily have to be a Ford. And if you go to the Ford dealership, you might see some Chevys on the lot. You might see some Dodges on the lot. And, of course, you're going to see a lot more used Fords on the lot. But they do cross-sell. It doesn't necessarily have to be just a Ford truck. But if you've got a heavy-duty truck, you might get a higher appraisal from a Ford or a Chevy store than you would from an import store. If you went to the Jaguar dealership over at Joe Bullard and was looking at a Jaguar and you had a high-top conversion band to trade in, they don't get too much of a call for high-top conversion bands. Or let's go to the other spectrum. Let's say you had a little Fiat you were trading in, or a smart car. Well, there's not too many customers going to a Jaguar lot to buy a Fiat or a smart car. So what they do is they farm that appraisal out to a wholesaler, which is a third party. And because they're farming it out, everybody gets a little chunk of that. And that hurts the appraisal. And that's why you would stop at Frontier Motors to get that second opinion that if you are going to buy a brand new car, it doesn't necessarily have to be a Lexus. It can be a car here. Maybe you're going to go to Sandy Sansing or Pete Moore and buy a brand new car, or World Ford, or the Toyota dealership, or Honda. It doesn't matter. There's so many dealers in Pensacola. You can go anywhere for that matter. But why not come to Frontier Motors to get a second opinion on what the car is worth, not the book value. You don't need me to go to book value. You can just type it in your computer. I got my computer in front of here, and it'll come up with the Kelly Blue Book and the Edmunds, and the NEDA version of this book right here is all on computer. But that's not reality. Reality that you want to know is, what would you write a check for? Because let's say you went to that dealership and you got yourself a really good deal, where you call me up and I say, yep, That sounds like a really good deal. They give you a good discount. You got a good rebate. They got the low financing. Everybody's happy. And now you toss the keys to them. That's what you're going to find out what the real appraisal is. Not off the top of the list price. That's where it gets confusing. If you go off the top of the price and then throw them your keys, you might get a good trade-in, but you're paying too much for the vehicle. So you want to kind of try to keep the transaction separate to make sure you're getting a good deal on the trade-in. Because, of course, what we would want you to do is get a good deal on both. We want you to get a good deal on that new car you're buying, but then we want you to get a fair appraisal. And again, that appraisal, if you had that information in your back pocket that you've been to Frontier Motors and Frontier Motors says, hey, my car should be worth $10,000. I went there, and I'll put that in writing. If I want your car, for example, let's say I appraise it, and let's say you've got a Camry with 75,000 miles on it, it's an 07 model, and I tell you, okay, I'm going to appraise that car for $10,000. You don't have to give them that information when you go to that dealership. What you do is you have them appraise the car, and let's see what they come back with. Let's say they come back and they say $7,000, then well, the first thing you can say, no, that's not enough. And they're going to say, well, why do you say that? Well, because I was over at Frontier Motors, and Frontier Motors said they'd pay me $10,000 for that car. Now, there's one or two things are going to happen. They're going to challenge you to say, well, go ahead and do that then. Go ahead and sell that car to Frontier Motors, and we'll still sell you our car. Or they're going to reappraise that car for the $10,000 and end up keeping it. And I would say about 75% of the time I never get to see the car. And what happened was the used car manager basically was trying to make up some profit by giving you that low appraisal. And then the sales manager, and what happens behind the scenes, and one of the reasons sometimes it takes a little bit longer to buy a new car is because they have a separate building that does the appraisal in the used car. So you're wondering, like, what's taking so long? You looked at the new car, you test driven it, you've hashed out the price, you've already decided on the color, the car's sitting right there, and then the last thing you need to do is get your car appraised, and 45 minutes to an hour later, they don't have an appraisal yet. Well, one reason is because that new car manager is not appraising the car. He's got the ability to sell you his car at a good deal, but he doesn't do the appraisal. They go to another building that has either the used car buyer or the used car appraiser, or sometimes the used car manager is doing the appraising for that particular dealership. There are actually some new car dealerships that are corporate owned where they don't even do the appraisals there. They do the same thing I said. They scan the ID number, take a couple pictures, and they send that information to corporate, and then corporate does the appraisal for them, which is, I don't even know how they do that, because they can't smell the car. What if the car smells really bad? You might still get a high appraisal when it should be a low appraisal. For $10,000 for your car, I'll put it in writing. It's good for a week, as long as you don't smash the car up in the meantime, or as long as the motor doesn't blow up in the meantime. I've had that happen already, where I appraised the car, a customer comes back 2 weeks later, and he says, well, is the appraisal still good? I says, yeah, the books haven't changed at all. I'll still buy it. I take the car for around the block. I'll send the check engine lights on, the airbag lights on, and the service lights on. And I take it back to our technician, and he scans it, and he says it's going to be $1,000 to fix. Well, obviously, we would reappraise the car because those things weren't broken when you first got it appraised. And that sometimes happens also, folks, when you order a new car. And I'm not sure how many people actually go to a new car dealership and order a car anymore. I was in the new car business almost as long as I've been in the used car business, and this was 20 years ago. Customers would come in all the time, sit down with a salesman, and they would what they call spec out a car. They'd have a worksheet, and they would ask, do you want this equipment, this equipment, this equipment? Back then, everything was what they called free-flowing. They would have a book like this with 10 pages of equipment you could order. They make it a little bit easier these days because a lot of these is in packages now. So I think there's more people walking on dealer lots and being able, as long as the color's right, being able to have 2 or 3 different packages and being able to buy off the dealer's lot. But if you want something specific, they don't have the right color, you can still order a car out. The normal process had been somewhere between 1 to 2 months to order a car out. And then what would happen, though, is they would reappraise the trade-in. And a lot of times you got ripped off because they tell you, well, I'll give you $10,000 for the trade-in. And then let's say it took 2 months for the car to get in, and you've put on 3,000 more miles, and now they come back and say, well, I'm only going to give you $8,000 for the car because we had to reappraise it. So you get caught in that mess, and of course that is where the car business gets the reputation. Is that they tell you one thing and then they do something else. And that's why we're really happy to have the reputation that we have at Frontier Motors, because we have strived for 18 years to make sure that what we say is what we do. And if I tell you that you can come in and get a car appraised within 10 to 15 minutes, that better happen, because you won't come back and do it again. And if I tell you that I'll write you a check for your car, and I'm not saying this here on the radio/TV show that I'm going to buy every car that I have, but there's very few cars that I won't buy, even if I don't need the car. And I had this happen a couple of weeks ago where a customer came in with what I pretty much was a heap of junk. The car was pretty much used up, had 160,000 miles on. It's not something I would buy for the lot, but guess what? I had an appraiser there that didn't work for me. He's a wholesaler, and what he did, he appraised the vehicle, and then I just gave the customer what he appraised it for, because they just wanted to get rid of the car. I think it was a $500 car, so we wrote a check for $500, and the customer, even though I didn't buy it, even though I wrote the check and just sold it to my wholesaler, the customer was very happy that we were able to help him out, because he wasn't buying a car, he just wanted to get rid of a car. And we can help you with that too. We buy a lot of cars from private individuals. I would rather buy a car from you that's watching or listening to the show than buy one at the auction. And the reason is, not that there's anything wrong with auction cars, but I have more time to spend with the car. At the auction, I have to be at the mercy of the auction guaranteeing the car, but I have maybe 3 to 4 minutes to appraise that car. Now, I do my appraisals normally a week ahead of time when the car gets registered. But what happens a lot of times, if I happen to see a car late, my buyer walks around the car. We're not able to drive the car at the auction. When you bring me a car, I can drive it. They do guarantee that the car doesn't have any major mechanical problems. I think some auctions it's $200, some auctions it's $500. In other words, anything over $500 they just pay for. So I pretty much guarantee that if the air conditioning's not working or the transmission's bad, that I can either back out of the deal or I can get that paid for. Now, I would rather buy from a private individual because I have the time to look at the car. I can drive the car before I make your bid. I can smell the car. If you buy one at a location that you're not at, you're going to be at the mercy of, hopefully, that the car doesn't smell. And you know, I don't know if you know this, but you can lose a deal over smell in a heartbeat. If the car does not smell good, I'm not going to be able to sell it. I don't care if it's neutral, that's okay. But if it smells like smoke or smells like an animal or smells like somebody died in it, you ain't going to sell the car. And you can't tell that over the internet. They could rate that car a 5 and the car could come in and look beautiful, but if it smells, you're pretty much going to have to rip the seats and rip the headliner and rip the carpeting and the pad and the matting and all that stuff out to get rid of that smell. And even then, sometimes it doesn't do it. So smell is a big deal to us. But that also has a lot to do with the appraisal. And that's one of the things I talk about. You can't just look in a book, and I've had people do this where they look at, let's say they look at the NEDA book, and they say, well, the NEDA book says that my '08 Prius is worth $11,900. I don't remember the last time this book wrote a check. It doesn't happen. That's what the book says it's worth. Now, reality is, what if they're going through the auction for $9,500? Well, if I can buy that car at the auction for $9,500, I'm sure I'm not going to pay you $11,900 just because the book says $11,900. So that's where we come in to give you that information. And we do this in a matter of minutes. Now, what happens a lot of times, our ulterior motive, of course, is that while you're getting your car appraised by us, we can hand you a form like this. And there's about 20 pages on here, and that's our inventory. And our inventory is in alphabetical order. So let's say that you said that the reason I'm getting my car appraised is because I'm going to buy a brand new CTS V, which is a Cadillac that you're going to buy. Let's say you're going to go to Vince Wibbs and buy a brand new one. Well, if I tell you I've got a 2012 CTS V, which is their supercharged, that's the Mac Daddy, in other words, a navigation, leather interior, sunroof. It's that two-door sports car, and it's got 8,000 miles on it. And if you're going to buy it, and I have the original window sticker at $72,000, and I've got this car advertised right now for $54,000. That's a pretty good savings. Now, I'm just using that example. I'm not wanting to try to pick on Cadillac. I can do this with any model out there. I've got BMWs, the same thing. I've got low-mileage BMWs. I've got a 2011 Audi here with 20,000 miles on. I've got a 2013 Chevy Spark with 8,000 miles on. I've got a 12 Chevy Colorado with 8,000 miles on. We have a 13 Ford Fusion with 3,000 miles on. Just to give you some example that it could be any one of those cars, and we'll use that and show you what the depreciation is. The depreciation is when you drive off the dealer's lot. And everybody knows what depreciation is. And a new car, it'll make your head spin. Some of these cars can depreciate as much as $10,000 within a matter of 6 months. And I'll give you the extreme example. I've got a Maserati that we purchased that had a $150,000 window sticker. The car had 6,000 miles on it when I bought it, and we paid a little over $100,000 for it. So can you imagine the poor guy that bought that vehicle for $150, and you know what? They don't deal on Maseratis. When you walk in there, if it's $150, you pay $150. So if you paid $150 and 6 months later with 6,000 miles on it, it's worth $100,000. That's a pretty good depreciation. I think if I calculate that properly, that's a $50,000 depreciation within 6 months. Now, again, that's an extreme. There's not too many people coming to Frontier Motors to buy a $150,000 car, but we have that. I'm using that as an example of how much you lose when you drive off the lot. When you buy an inexpensive car, like a Chevy Spark, for example, that's not that expensive to begin with, if they all depreciate 35% or 30% in the first year, well, your depreciation on a $15,000 car at 30%, of course, is a lot less. So I might only be able to save you $2,000 or $3,000 over a brand new one. But where we win a lot of times is when I'm doing that appraisal, I'm going to give you an out-the-door figure, and we'll use the Cadillac example. I'm going to appraise your trade-in. I'm going to take my $54,000 car, and you're going to be looking at a brand new one at $70,000. And let's say you say, well, I still want a new one. I still want to look. I'm going to give you the one figure that's important, and that is what we call the out-the-door figure. So you have your list price, your discounted price, then you have your appraisal, and then you have all your fees. And the reason I want to give you an out-the-door figure is because dealers charge different fees. Some of them have a bunch of fees that we don't charge. So that you have to take that in consideration. You can't just look at the list price, and let's say I've got a Hyundai Sonata and mine's 18 and a new one's 20. Well, that's only $2,000 gap. But what if my bottom line is another $2,000 better? Now I'm saving you $4,000. And those are the things I'm talking about, is that you want to get that price in writing. And if a dealership won't give you the out-the-door figure, I'm talking about taxes, title, dock fee, battery tax, tire tax, turbo tax, whatever taxes there are, if they won't give you that figure in writing, then they're hiding something. Most dealers will put it in writing, but there are a few that say, well, I'm not putting it in writing. I don't know why they wouldn't put it in writing. They put an expiration date on there if they want to, in case you come back 3 months later. They don't have to adhere to it. We put a 1 week expiration date on all our figures in case the market drops. Right now, I've been on vacation, and I just got back today, and I'm so happy to be back. I had my fingers crossed when I said that. We have 290 cars in inventory, folks. 290 cars in inventory. Check out our website. It's FrontierMotorsInc.com. Forget about the website address. Just Google Frontier Motors. We're the largest Frontier Motors in the nation. I think there's 4 or 5 of them. We're the first one that comes up because we sell the most amount of cars. And we have all those 290 cars in inventory. Actually, we've got 10 more coming in, so we'll have over 300 cars in inventory. And we've got 31 detailed photographs. They all have pricing. Unless I just got them this morning, they'll have pricing on there. You can email us to make sure that price we have on there is our true price. In other words, is there any negotiating room? And some of the cars, I've got some room to work with on the price, and some of them I don't, depending on the markup of the car and the NADA values on the car and what I paid for them. So, but check us out to see if we've got some negotiating room. And then, of course, take advantage of our services. I'll run a free history report for you. Carfax right now charges about $40 for a Carfax report. AutoCheck charges about $25. I subscribe to both of them. I can do a free Carfax report for you. I don't care if you're buying your neighbor's car, a car on Craigslist, or the competition. If they won't give you a Carfax or an AutoCheck, I'll do both at no charge. So either call us at 850-436-8080. That's 436-8080. That's Frontier Motors in Pensacola, Florida, and I can give you that information at no charge. I'll tell you what to pay for the car you want to buy. You don't even tell me what they're asking. I'll make sure you get a good deal. I'll tell you what they should give you for your trade-in or what I'll pay you for a trade-in. And if you don't want to mess with that, just bring me your car, and we'll just write you a check for the car. You'll be out of there in 15 to 20 minutes with the cash. If you've got a payout, we'll make the payoff for you. That's Frontier Motors, 436-8080. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. Have a great day. Auf Wiedersehen.
You're in luck. Frontier Motors is down the street. Got the best deals that can't be beat. Don't overpay, come in today. Doing business the old-fashioned way. Frontier, we've got the right price. Frontier, we'll treat you mighty nice. Frontier Motors, low overhead country.